Ми сьогодні маємо позитивну новину, що протитанкові комплекси Javelin нам будуть поставлені в якості озброєння оборонного за рахунок фінансування Сполучених Штатів Америки.
A senior State Department official said the U.S. is going to provide anti-tank weapons to Ukraine. The State Department officially announced Friday evening that the U.S. was going to provide Ukraine with enhanced defensive capabilities as part of our effort to help Ukraine build its long-term defense capacity to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity and to deter further aggression. The State Department said, quote, "The U.S. assistance is entirely defensive in nature, and as we have always said, Ukraine is a sovereign country and has a right to defend itself." Members of Congress and the U.S.-backed Ukrainian government had long requested anti-tank weapons to boost Kiev in its fight against Russian-backed separatists.
The Javelin has two components, a command launch unit, or CLU, and the round, composing of a missile and a disposable launch tube assembly. Designed in 1989, it works on a fire-and-forget system. The operator locks onto the enemy, presses the launch control, and the missile guides itself onto the target. It has two firing modes, direct attack and top attack. The lads call it the Dolphin. Dropping straight down, it can take out a vehicle shielded behind a building. The Javelin's power is matched by its precision. Using the CLU, Command Launch Unit, the operator has thermal imaging capabilities, turning night into day.
After years of requests, the U.S. has approved the sale of lethal defensive weapons to Ukraine. For most of the time the war has been raging in the east, Ukraine has been at a great disadvantage, one with tragic and often devastating consequences when it came to countering Russia-supplied militants. So what does the U.S.'s decision mean for Ukraine now, 3 years on? To answer this question today, joining us in the studio is Mikhailo Samus, Deputy Director for International Affairs at the Center for Army, Conversion and Disarmament Studies. Ukraine has been requesting this since 2014. So now that the case, they're allowing the sale of these weapons. Is it something that's a bit too late? Does Ukraine already have the capacity to buy these weapons from other sources, or at the same time producing its own defensive weapons?
No, actually, any help is important, of course, when you're fighting with Russia, because it's a huge country with a huge strategic potential, and any help is very important for Ukraine now. But actually, for now, it's not so important like 3 years ago, of course. Right. And if you're talking about the importance of this signal from United States, I would say it's like a signal for other world that Ukraine has a special status of relationship between United States and Kiev, and now, for example, Paris or Berlin could help Ukraine as well, because maybe it's a surprise for you or paradox, but it exists some actually prohibition of military technical cooperation, so export between France, Germany and Ukraine.
Because this isn't a gift. Yeah. This is an ability to purchase. Yeah. And I think that might be lost to some people because it's written often that the U.S. will supply Ukraine with lethal defensive weapons, but it's the ability to purchase these.
I'm not sure, because just 1 hour ago, I read that interview of Poltorak, it's Minister of Defense, Ukrainian Minister of Defense, and he told that it could be inside of the package of $350 million, which is United States every year given to Ukraine on the military help. So maybe it could be inside of the this package, but of course, but actually next time it could be just a purchase. So I think it's only first time. It's Javelins as well, like 41 millions for 200 missiles and 31 or something like this launchers. So it's like a first package to understand how Ukraine could operate it, what is the situation with confidence. Actually, Russian spies could be inside the Ministry of Defense still.
Right.
As you remember, just a couple days ago, the SBU opened the Russian spy close to Prime Minister. Actually, Ukraine has own anti-tank missiles, and it's not so sophisticated like Javelins, because Javelins using a principle fire and forget. So it's the operator could fire and after change the position, and it's very great, very nice to make for special operation forces.
Which makes sense. They can quickly, versus infantry, they're slower to respond than you'd have these specialized units.
Ukrainian missiles, Ukrainian systems, they don't use this system principle fire and forget, so but they much more cheaper. It's like 4-5 times cheaper than United States system, American systems.
What then, so we talk a bit about the Ukrainian defense industry and the military. What's the status at the moment of the defense industry? I mean, this war, unfortunately, war is a great impetus for development of industrial, the defense industry. So where does it stand now?
Yeah, actually, before war, Ukrainian defense industry, they didn't develop at all, and they just using the Soviet heritage to make some export,
they kept the status quo often,
some export contracts to modernize or to repair old Soviet systems in the world, like in post-Soviet world, let's say, like in Africa, Middle East, or Asia, or something like this. Now, after 3 years of war, they got a huge impulse to develop, and unfortunately, but for industry. From other hand, I could say that it's not impulse steel, it's not impulse to develop something new. A lot of new products, but for serial development, serial production, we didn't have a great success, let's say. Mostly, we're talking about repairment and modernization of old Soviet.
So not as much with the
weapons,
production,
like tanks, armored vehicles, aircraft, helicopters. Mostly, it's Soviet equipment, which is repairment. We have a repairment and modernization. Now, in Ukrainian units, we have almost 100% weapon ready to fight. It's great. It means that Ukrainian soldiers could fight with full package of equipment they should have. What we expect next years, let's say, that Ukrainian defense industry and the private sector, because before war we actually had like 90% of state sector, state-owned plants and enterprises.
Looking at this public-private enterprising.
And now the huge development of private enterprises and business in defense sector. It's great because private business is more flexible.
Absolutely.
And they trying to find what soldier needs to fight, and then it's great because of small solutions, which is very helpful on a battlefield. And we expect that next 2018, 2019, we will have a huge explosion of new products by private sector, together with state sector, but mostly from the private sector.